Dear friends, welcome to the second session of the Second Catholic Youth Convention on the Future of Europe. During the first edition in June 2021, with more than 100 participants from many European countries, you entered the dynamic of the Conference on the Future of Europe, dreaming about the future of our continent. You expressed the dream of a Europe based on solidarity and fraternity, and many of your proposals and recommendations reflected the desire to strengthen bonds of social friendship. 2 weeks ago, you had again the chance to exchange views, worries and proposals with representatives of the European Parliament and the European Commission. It was a very interesting discussion, and your ideas were taken at heart by the panelists. Today, we will have a dialogue on youth and Southeast Europe. As stated by the president of COMECE, Cardinal Hollerich, during his opening intervention for this year's Catholic Youth Convention, he said, "Europe is and will be a continuously evolving reality, where everyone has a fundamental role to play in writing a new page of history, a page full of hope, peace, and reconciliation." These were the opening words of Cardinal Hollerich when we started this year's Youth Convention. The complex reality of the countries in the region of Southeast Europe, commonly referred to as Western Balkans, is in this sense an invitation to all of us. Moreover, with the war in Ukraine and shifting realities in the countries of our neighborhood, the question of future perspectives for peace, prosperity, and stability on the European continent regains further relevance. We are glad and very honored to have Mr. Olivér Várhelyi. I don't know if he's already connected. He's the European Commissioner for Neighbourhood and Enlargement, whom we've had already.
I think, Manuel, you are mute.
That somebody mutes us. So I don't know if the commissioner is already here. Is he already here? Not yet, but we will welcome him. And we think that he's the person most prepared and best placed to give us a sense of the recent and future policy developments with regards to the region of Southeast Europe and its European prospects. After his input and an exchange with him, he has to leave at 14:30. We will have a chance to listen to Mr. Branislav Stanišek from the European Parliament. He's already Parliamentary Research Service, and he's already with us today now, and continue the discussion on the role of young people in the process of European integration of this region. COMECE, as you know, represents the bishops' conferences of the EU member states and has the mission to dialogue with the European Union, with the European institutions, and has constantly favored and supported the project of European integration since its beginning and has closely followed it. As the Apostolic Exhortation Ecclesia in Europa underlines, as you know, this is a document by the Pope after this important Synod on Europe celebrated in the Vatican. This document underlines Europe is more than just a geographical area, and the European Union cannot be reduced merely to its economic dimension. Last year, in January 2021, Cardinal Hollerich met with Commissioner Várhelyi to discuss policy recommendations on people-centered and fair future Southern partnerships. Commissioner Várhelyi also met with Cardinal Parolin, the Cardinal Secretary of State. The document presented to the EU Commissioner was elaborated by COMECE in dialogue with local church authorities. The contribution focused on making the Mediterranean again a place of peaceful encounters. Several other initiatives with regard to the region of Southeast Europe have taken place over the last couple of years. I mention the visit of Monsignor George Frendo and Monsignor Georgi Meta from the Albanian Bishops' Conference in 2020. Also, Monsignor Ladislav Nemet, President of the International Bishops' Conference of St. Cyril and Methodius, came to Brussels in 2018 to exchange on the necessary steps to be taken by both the EU and the countries in the Western Balkans towards a stronger EU integration. Many of these initiatives were co-organized with the European Office of the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung. And with them together today, we also have prepared this event. I'm very grateful for this. Now, at this crucial moment for peace on the European continent, we have another occasion to discuss and contribute to the advancement of the process of European integration. How to foster reconciliation in the region of Southeast Europe through youth dialogue and exchange. How can a new forward-looking narrative be given shape for the Western Balkan region, and which part can young people play in it? How can young people from current EU member states be empowered to contribute to this process? These are the questions we want to ask ourselves today in this meeting. It will be you, the young people of Europe, who will now have the chance to discuss and explore potential avenues for future European integration and the peaceful development of the region of Southeast Europe, the whole European continent. So, and this is my wish. I'll be following this meeting because I'm very interested in this issue. So I wish you a very, very fruitful meeting and vivid discussion. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Father Manuel, for really these nice words of welcome and some opening remarks that already introduce us quite well, I think, into this topic of the Western Balkans, of its future European path, and also the important role that young people can play in this process, both in the current countries of the European Union as well as in the hopefully soon future ones. I am just looking at the screen. I still don't see the commissioner with us, so he may be maybe a bit late, 1-2 minutes. So I would maybe use also this time to invite you, young people, if you have any questions at this point, maybe to Father Manuel about COMECE, about the work of COMECE, its mission, its tasks, that you can ask. But now I see that the commissioner is just joining us, so maybe then we can come back to this also at a later point. Good afternoon, Mr. Commissioner. Can you hear us? Yes, good afternoon. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can.
So without further ado, I would now like to welcome you and introduce you as our first speaker at this second part of the second European Catholic Youth Convention on the future of Europe, and especially dedicated to an important question that is very much linked to the future of Europe, namely that of a European future for the Western Balkan region, the region of Southeast Europe, and the role of young people. So we are very honored and pleased to have you with us as the European Commissioner in charge of Neighbourhood and Enlargement. After your service at the Hungarian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Justice, you gained a long-standing experience in also working with the institutions of the European Union in Brussels before you became a member of the College of the Commissioners in 2019. So for your information, Mr. Commissioner, we have here with us about 60 people from all over Europe, both the current member states of the EU as well as hopefully soon the future ones, also from the region of the Western Balkans, that have been now over recent months discussing these questions pertinent to the conference on the future of Europe. And today, as was said, the main topic is to discuss this European future of the region of Southeast Europe. So without further ado, I'd now like to give you the floor for an initial input, and then we would also ask our young people to enter into a discussion with you. Please, you have the floor.
Laudetur Jesus Christus. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is always a pleasure to talk to Catholics. It's always a pleasure to meet Catholic youth. It's not very often. I regret that, to be honest. I think we should meet much more often. So that would be my first plea to you. Second, I think it is very important that Catholic youth makes its voice heard on issues of geopolitical and geostrategic nature. So I welcome the opportunity, and I want to thank the organizers because I think these are the days when these issues are coming very much to the forefront of the political thinking throughout Europe, maybe not only in Europe, but also in other continents as well. So I'm very glad to see that we also have Catholic youth from the Western Balkans itself, and they should know that their future is very much a common one with us, and their future should be the same as ours. And this is what we should be all working for. And as I said, not only in Europe, but also maybe in other continents. So let's start by giving you the context maybe of enlargement policy. And then maybe we can outline what we are offering for the young generation in the region. And at the end, maybe we can answer some questions as well, if there are any. So, as I said, we're living in quite turbulent times. In addition to the socio-economic challenges posed by the COVID crisis, we immediately jumped into a war on our continent, something we haven't seen for quite a while. Although there might be a different memory of wars in the Western Balkans. And since I'm also coming from the very close vicinity of the Western Balkans, from Szeged, and the war in the Western Balkans was just when I was a university student. So I know very much how does it feel, how does it smell, and I didn't get to like it at all, to be honest. And I think we need to remember this always when we talk about the war. And in the Western Balkans, I don't think I need to remind anybody about that. So this creates, of course, immense suffering in Ukraine, and not only in Ukraine, but also throughout the region. I could go on and talk about Moldova. I could talk about the people fleeing Ukraine to our member states. We are all implied in this. We are all suffering the consequences. Of course, not as much as Ukraine, which is being just destroyed as we speak, physically destroyed. So I think our responsibility is to help to end this war and end this conflict as soon as possible, because human suffering and casualties are already running very high, and as we speak, it's only running higher and higher. So I think we need to make that point every time we speak about the war, that we need peace immediately. Since the beginning of the war, the international community has shown an immense level of solidarity with Ukraine and the people of Ukraine. And we not only have condemned the war, and we not only have helped Ukraine to defend itself, but again, we think that we will need to help also the people on the ground to save lives, because that is another responsibility of ours, be it Christians, be it Jews, be it non-religious. We have to help everybody we can to save lives. And this is why we have been working with all religious groups in the country to bring food, shelter, or even rescue physically people on the ground from shelling, from dying, basically. So this war is an ugly one, and this war only creates destruction and chaos. And it is unfortunately beyond the borders of Ukraine that it has an impact. We see the food crisis emerging as a consequence of this war. We see an energy crisis emerging because of this war. And we see also a major economic crisis in the form of inflation, also destroying or possibly destroying the economic future of many, many countries, not only in Europe, but also in our neighborhood. We see that the increased food insecurity is something that is already, unfortunately, a reality. If I look at the Maghreb and the MENA region, we see that there is a serious disruption of basic food products like wheat or vegetable oil, things we need for the daily life of the people. And this is why we have been not only helping Ukraine and its people, but also we are helping our neighbors and bringing additional financing, additional investments to keep the bread on the table and to have everything the people need to run their daily lives. This is why we have been relentlessly reaching out to everybody affected by this war. And I do hope that we can continue to work with the Caritas Internationalis and other Christian organizations to bring this help. I'm thinking about Lebanon, where we started working together, where I think we need to speed up our work. And I'm thinking about other parts of the world. I'm thinking about, of course, the Maghreb region, but also how to bring help to the Christian community in Jerusalem. So it is, of course, not very joyful times that we are living, but these are testing times as well. Times are testing us whether we are delivering not only the messages our religion taught us, but also the deeds our religion should force us. So let's turn now to the youth. I don't want to have such a negative exchange only with you, because I think that with the European Year of Youth, which is this year, we have to give also hope to the youth, and we should also help the youth to overcome the challenges it has already faced before the COVID crisis, and the challenges the COVID crisis only amplified. Because we think that the COVID crisis had maybe the most severe impact, apart from those who have lost their lives and lost loved ones, the deepest impact on the youth. I have 3 children, so I have witnessed it. They have been missing school, they have been missing the community, and 2 years or 3 years in the life of the young generation counts triple or quadruple. And most important part of their lives is this period when they are creating the foundations for their lives. And this is why we need to reach out to them, and we need to bring the help that they need to overcome all these times that were almost lost. So in the Western Balkans, we have seen the difficulties already before. We have seen the skills mismatch, basically the weakness of the education system. We see the brain drain that the youth is leaving the Western Balkans instead of staying and working for their own country. Once the Western Balkans were 18 million people, now it's only 14. And most of them who have left the region are from the younger generation who should be the future of this region. And this is why we have been working from the very beginning of this mandate to create a completely new reality on the ground for the youth, so that they are able not only to stay, but also to plan long-term their economic, social, and family future in their own countries in the Western Balkans. We've seen that the unemployment rate was in 2021 as an average in the Western Balkans, because there are differences here and there, 13.7%. This is a very high figure if I compare it to the EU. In the EU, the average is around 7-8% nowadays. And we have also seen that in this vast number of unemployed people, the youth unemployment rate is staggering. Almost 35% of the youth is unemployed, which means that they cannot find a job, maybe because there are no jobs, or maybe because the skills that they have are not the ones the economy needs. So when we've been thinking what to do, how we could be relevant, and how Europe could help to overcome this complete mismatch that you have on the one side, a brain drain, losing so many of the youngsters, and a very high unemployment rate in the youth. What to do? And we sat down with our partners in the region, and we have tried to come up by addressing the main bottlenecks in front of the region, in terms of closing the development gap between Europe and the Western Balkans. Because what we have found was, when talking to the youngsters, but I hope they will confirm this to us today, what I have learned also coming from this part of the world is that we're going because we don't know what we would be working in 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 years. We don't know whether we will be able to afford housing for ourselves from the salaries, the money we can make here. We don't know how the investors' climate is. We don't know whether the region will have everything for us to become entrepreneurs, whether we will have roads, whether we will have rails, whether we would have broadband internet connections. Are we going to be really part of Europe, or is it going to be a constant stagnation in this part of Europe? So When talking about the youth, we also have to talk about the education system. What we see is that although there are strong education systems as a heritage of the former Yugoslavia in the Western Balkans, but this education system does not provide the skills people need to get into a job. There's not enough of engineers, there's not enough of doctors, there's not enough chemists, not enough people who actually can run the economy, because most of them either has left or most of them are not trained to be. And this is why we have decided that we need to invest for the youth also in the education system. So apart from the infrastructure that we can create, which is necessary, which is a prerequisite to any modern economy, we have to also invest in the education. This is why we have dedicated 377 million euros for only the Erasmus Plus. And this is why we are also working in close collaboration with the European Training Foundation, through which we are supporting education institutions in the Western Balkans. And this is why we thought it is very important that we have full participation of the Western Balkans in the Horizon program, which is about bringing research and development into the region. Now, when it comes to jobs, what you see is that you have a high level of unemployment, and you have also a number of jobs that are unfilled. So the young graduates, they remain unemployed because the skills and qualifications they have are not necessary or not demanded. This is why we want to create or help to create in this region a new economy. A new economy which is boosting entrepreneurship, which is helping SMEs to come forward and be created, and also innovative SMEs. Innovative SMEs that are always SMEs, or mostly SMEs, created by the youngest generation. Because they need a boost, they need an opportunity to be created. This is because of the underfunding and the undercapitalization of the region. This is why we are dedicating huge amount of money to create a new fine fabric of the economy by supporting the SMEs. And finally, on the infrastructure. Of course, if you travel, for example, if you want to travel, for example, from Skopje to Tirana, which is not even 300 kilometers, you need to devote at least 4.5 hours or 5 hours to get there, because there are no roads. If you want to send your products that you have manufactured in Ohrid, let's say, and you want to ship it to Zagreb, you have to devote almost a full day to get it there. And until we overcome this, there is no economic perspective for people in the Western Balkans. And this is why we came forward with a big plan, an economic and investment plan that should mobilize 30 billion euros, which is 1/3 of the GDP of the whole Western Balkan region, to fill these gaps. So to connect all the capitals with railways and highways, to bring broadband core network to the entire region, and to connect this region with Europe, to help and expand the availability of clean energy and cleaner energy for the Western Balkans. In the Western Balkans, only by phasing out coal, health hazards could be significantly reduced. And replacing Russian gas and bringing in more secure sources of gas and other energy would create a revelation for the economy and for the population in the region. This is why we are investing heavily in green energy technologies. This is why we are investing very heavily in retrofitting buildings to make them more energy efficient. This is why we are investing in electricity interconnections. This is why we want this region to be connected and linked up with Europe much faster and much deeper. So, of course, all this, as I said, wouldn't work if this plan didn't cover the skills, it didn't cover the education, but it does. It does because it is the combination of these two areas that will bring a different reality on the ground that will be able to reverse the trend that we see now. Of course, I know it will take a while. In the case of my own country, Hungary, it took more than 10 years to reverse the trend. But now, the trend is reversing in the case of Hungary, because all these developments have been made in Hungary. And we should do it even before the Western Balkan joins the European Union, because that is, to me, that will bring the real integration on the ground forward much faster than we have seen in Central and Eastern Europe, who have been doing this for more than 30 years now. So, to conclude, needless to say, the Western Balkan is Europe, but not yet the European Union, and it should be part of the European Union, all of it. And of course, my job is to make it happen, and my job is to help everybody who is ready to fight for this and work for this. And I do hope that we Christians, we all work for that, because we are linked culturally, religiously with the rest of Europe, and we have to be as one, working for the same goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner, for this realistic and sober, but I would say also encouraging perspective for the region of Southeast Europe and the important role young people can play in the process of European integration. We know that you will have to leave us soon, in about 5 minutes, I think, for an important commitment that we have in the European Parliament. But if you allow us, I know that young people would be also very keen. I can
add another 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you for your generosity, because indeed there would be, I think, some young people that would like to ask you some questions that actually have been elaborated on the basis of a survey that was conducted in preparation of today's event among the participants. And on the basis of this survey, some questions then have been prepared that would be now presented by some young people to you. So first I would ask Amela from Albania.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Amela Mraya. I am a young Albanian citizen. I am studying economics. I am very interested in the developments of my country joining the European Union and in general about Europe and its politics. Mr. Commissioner, you mentioned that there is a development gap between the Western Balkan and the countries of the European Union or Western Europe. And I think that the integration of the Western Balkan in the European Union would help reduce this development gap. And the Western Balkan countries and the 60% of young people in the Western Balkan countries, as a UNICEF report shows, they want to join the European Union. So they want their country to join the European Union because they believe that it would make things better. and young people are generally also invested in the topic of European Union accession. However, the process of acceding the European Union has proven to not always go forward in a smooth or predictable way. For example, as an Albanian citizen, I sometimes have the feeling that despite my country doing big reforms and big steps in a good direction, the European Union keeps delaying candidature. Is it realistic that Albania, but not only Albania, also other countries of the Western Balkan, that one day join the European Union? And how can the European Union assure that young people don't lose trust in this process and the outcome along the way, especially given the current talks about the European political community and its potential impact on accession negotiations?
Thank you, Amela. Maybe we can take two more questions and then give you back the floor, Mr. Commissioner, for then a comprehensive final response. So now I would give the floor to Milica from Serbia.
Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Milica Bogdanov, and I'm working with young people for Caritas Serbia. And together we have prepared the following question based on experience of younger generation here in Serbia. Sometimes we feel misunderstood and treated because of events which took place in the past, or because of the image which is being given about Serbia, our country, in other parts of Europe. As young people, we would like to play our part in changing this image and to present Serbia in another light, because we love our country and also we love Europe. We're looking to find our place amongst the people of Europe. So the question is, what can young people do to improve the image of Serbia, of their country, and its people within the European Union? Because people in Serbia believe that they share common values and history with the rest of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Milica. And the third question will be asked by Antonia from Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Hello, how are you? Good afternoon, first of all. The second thing is, I will introduce myself. My name is Antonia Juric. I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina, student and worker. I just want to say that I'm really honored that I'm part of this Catholic Youth Convention. So what I want to ask, first of all, I want to say that today my question will be something for the role of young people within Southeast Europe, like reconciliation, peace, overcoming past traumas. So the youth, youth are important agents of in the context of the reconciliation process in the Balkans, because today's youth are born during and since the Western Balkan conflicts of the 1990s. So many continue to be exposed to intergenerational traumas, nationalistic narratives and societies, and also education system built on ethnic segregation. Some worry that today's youth are more hardened in their identity lines and views of others, making social cohesion and sustainable peace harder to attain. Others also recognize an ardent desire among today's youth to move beyond identity politics and to live normally in open, diverse, and democratic societies. So in part of this, I want to ask you, it's two questions. What can be done on the part of the European Commission to help overcome these traumas so that peace and reconciliations can prosper? And also, which role can young people themselves from within and outside the region to contribute to a positive narrative which allows for a constructive dialogue between various countries? So that is two questions I have, and thank you.
Thank you, Antonia. And I imagine that each of these three questions would have deserved at least 1 hour response, but we know that you have about 5 minutes, Mr. Commissioner, so back to you, and we trust that you can at least give some elements on these three questions.
Well, you didn't make my life easy, that's for sure, with these questions. Let's
that
go
is
on by one.
why we are here.
Let's go on by one to Mrs. Mraja in Albania. Well, the trust of the youth is the most valuable, but I would say is the most volatile. It's easy to lose and difficult to get. And this is why I think that the youth can only be convinced if opportunities are created, instead of trying to convince by arguments or by a mantra of the importance of the European Union. To me, what is the most important these days, to be very blunt with you, because I think youth likes to be blunt. At least this is what I know from my kids. Is that, and from my own history, because I was young as well, it's very simple. Bring real integration on the ground forward. I guess the youth is not very much interested in talking about institutional processes, IGCs, documents, conferences, what have you. You need a job that is comparable to a job what we have in the European Union. You need mobility so that you can travel around and try yourself in different jobs, in different places. You need the possibility to become an entrepreneur, if you so wish. These are the things that can be done even before Albania becomes a member of the European Union. My goal as a commissioner is to bring this development forward, because we've been talking too much about the processes and we have been doing too little on the ground to change the lives and to create a European life in the Western Balkans for the youth. To Mrs. Bogdanov in Serbia, first of all, be proud about Serbia, because Serbia has a lot to give. Serbia, although has a very difficult history, I agree with you, and I also agree with you that this history is still looming around it in Europe. The best way to change that and to change the perception of Serbia is by doing little steps, but every day coming forward with ideas, with cooperation in the region, with reaching out to everybody in the region, and with reaching out to Europe. Because I'm also, as I said, I'm from Szeged. So Szeged is what, 20 kilometers from Serbia, or not even that. So I think I know a bit about the mindset of the people living in that area. Is that we like to talk about the negative things a lot, but we never talk about the positive things. So talk about the positive things. Come and explain in Europe what you do in Serbia, because Serbia is undergoing now a very rapid growth, a very rapid transformation and development. And this is not very well known in Europe. Talk about it. Be part of the discussion. Come forward, engage. This is how Serbia can change its own image. To Mrs. Juric in Bosnia and Herzegovina, well, you put me the most difficult question, but I will try to answer it the simplest possible way. Yes, I agree with you. The current youth may have much stronger identity, especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the dividing lines of identities are very much present. But there is one thing the youth should teach the old generation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, is that identity is not against someone. It is for you to define yourself, not against someone. So it's a self-definition so that you know who you are and you know how to cooperate with one another. Of course, the only way to change this is by having these identities flourishing and cooperating. So the best would be if we could have, for example, a coalition of the Serbian, the Bosniak, and the Croatian youth organizations coming to Europe, speaking as one. We are ready to support this. We are ready to provide every help for any such initiative. So accepting each other's identity, being strong in identity, but not as opposed to one another, but instead working together for your country. This is how I think change can be brought about. It will take time. It doesn't come overnight, I know. But this generation can change it, because this generation has not been holding guns against each other. This generation can be the first one who can do this. So it's your responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you.
So we know that now you have to leave us, but thank you very much, really, once again, on behalf of all the young people present here, really, for your time and willingness to engage. We wish you all the best for your mission and look forward to future occasions to dialogue again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. God bless. Bye.
And so now I would like to welcome our second speaker, who is also already with us, Mr. Branislav Stanicek, a Slovak national who works in Brussels for the European Parliamentary Research Service in the unit on the EU external policies, where he's also following closely developments in European neighborhood and in the region of the Southeast Europe. Before, he also served as assistant to the EU Special Envoy for Religious Freedom in the World, and also worked for the European Committee of the Regions, where he was dealing with questions of the EU cohesion policy. So thank you very much also again to you for accepting our invitation to exchange with the young people on this important question of the future European integration of the region of the Southeast Europe and the role of the young people. So without further ado, I will now give you the floor for a short input, and then we would continue the discussion with you. Please, you have the floor.
So first of all, thank you, Marek, for these very kind words and invitation. Thank you to COMECE and also Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung. You are doing excellent job with this Catholic Youth Convention. As Marek said, I work almost since 15 years in different positions linked to enlargement, Western Balkans. We traveled many times in the region, and I see kind of double movement that early in 2006-07, there was much more optimistic view on the speed of enlargement in the region. In countries like Bosnia, we heard almost always the same things like, okay, we just do some reform, constitutional reform, and then it will go very smoothly and quickly. And now we are 10 years later, 15 years later. Of course, the constitutional reform is not yet done. Things are going rather slowly, and it raises many questions, especially for the young people. So where we are with this enlargement process, why it takes so long? Because if we look in countries from Central Europe, also like Slovakia, my country, or Poland, Poland open accession talks in 1994, and in 10 years was in the EU. Slovakia 1 year later, 95. In 2004, we have been in the EU. So the whole process took only 9 years. And of course, this is a big question for young generation. So what could be done? As said already, Commissioner Várhelyi, many things could be done even before accession that are on the plate. There are a huge amount of EU funds, 1/3 of the GDP. So we can heavily invest in infrastructures, not only transport, energy, green energy, but also digital. There are some new projects very close to venture capital investment, where EU is investing in a new high-tech companies. So there is European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, European Investment Bank, European Commission. So funds are available. Of course, very often the access to these funds is complicated, a lot of bureaucratic stuff you have to do, but this is to ensure transparency and equality for all people that would like to request this money. Other things is linked to education and position of the young people. I would say the brightest and the most gifted, they try to live and study abroad, but it is not proper for the region of the Balkans, but I think it's also the same for France. If you can, you go to study to Harvard or to London. There are many people from France, like France or Germany. So it's possible also for the Western Balkans. There are a lot of stipend opportunity, Erasmus Plus. But maybe what we can do better as EU is to support also the level of the high school education. That in the European neighborhood, there was a project that is ongoing now in Georgia, in Tbilisi. The previous commissioner created European school there, because the observation was that before, let's say, the best student went to Russian school, Pushkin High School. And now we see that more people go to this European school. And maybe this project could be replicated in the Western Balkans, starting with one country. If there is success, maybe even in all 6 countries of the region. And on the longer horizon, why not to create a European university? We see American university in many countries of the neighborhood, like Egypt or Lebanon, but we don't see European university. Maybe it is something to explore. Then a very interesting point was raised by Commissioner, and I would like to join him here, is to have a regional, but maybe also European kind of council of Catholic youth, where we could join together intellectual forces, different cultural experience and different national experiences, and provide a platform of exchange, of meeting where we can communicate together, but also influence and have some concrete proposal for enlargement process here in Brussels. Okay, what I would like to say, as we are here among Catholic, mostly all Catholic students, young people, is that let's not forget to defend very good humanistic tradition. Actually, humanistic is Christian, that we have to defend human dignity of every person. Of course, this was not evident in the time when Christianity began. In that time, if you look, we had slavery. Women have not been considered as fully human person. Children have not been considered as fully human person. But even today, if you look in some countries, but not in the Balkan, but more in Asia, like China, India, women are still considered as second-class citizen. So we would like to support this Christian humanism, dignity of every person. And here, let's not forget of unborn people, because if a worker is under threat of his employer, he can create a trade union. If somebody is under threat, he can maybe create NGOs. But unborn people, they are the most fragile in very fragile position. And in this short introduction, I would like to finish with one French philosopher, René Girard, because René Girard is a good guy to read, especially in the Balkans, because he advised, or he provided one philosophical solution to some problems in the sphere of violence. That in many countries we have a kind of vicious circles, that you did something to us, then we, of course, we have to replicate, we have to respond, and we have a graduation of violence. And what René Girard suggested was that at one stage, we have to cut this circle of violence and propose a new start. And I believe this is a very Christian proposal, and it would be very useful in many countries, not only in the Balkans, but of course now we see it in the Eastern, in Ukraine, that escalation of violence is not the path for the future. And this is my last point. European Union was really created on this idea that at one stage, here it was the war, bloody war between France, Germany, and other countries, that we have to stop this violence and we have to collaborate together. So I think that young people, they know how to do it because you have not been engaged in these atrocities. And I hope and I believe that you are a good inspiration also for political leaders. And one day you will be these political leaders, so you will take the hands and destiny of your countries forward. So I wish you all the luck, and I thank you also that you are here for us. And together we will be one in union. I am sure about this. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Branislav, for this very inspirational and forward-looking perspective. Also, given the advanced time, I would say that we can now move on to, again, a discussion with you. First, we still have some questions from the survey that we would like to pose to you. And then I see that there are already some questions also in the chat. And again, please, if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to use the chat function. So I would propose that maybe we can take maybe 3 questions again at the same time, and then give the floor back to you. So first I would ask Michał from Poland to present his question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I heard well? Yeah, perfect. So the EU integration process as an ever closer union of the European peoples is one of the most important pillars of the entire European project, the common development towards each other and forward together is a fundamental advantage of the EU. Recently, also considering the aspirations in, for example, Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova, there has been a lot of talk about a two-speed Europe and about a European political community. I guess we all heard this term of two-speed Europe. And Mr. Stanicek, what do you think of the strategy? Doesn't this mean that the European Union, is actually developing further apart than together? Is there a possibility that some not so efficient countries will be left behind by the development, And I also have a question: what we, the younger generation, may do not to develop apart, but to develop together. Yeah, what we can do to go together in this process of development. Thank you.
Thank you, Michał, for this question that is very topical at the moment on this European political community and also possible risks of a two-speed Europe or risk of further disintegration. Now the next question will be asked by Juan Luis from Spain.
Hi, can you hear me? Sure. Well, I'm Juan Luis, I'm from Spain, and well, a study by Friedrich Ebert Foundation from 2018 and 2019 shows great dissatisfaction among young people in the Southeastern Europe. This includes less understanding of democracy, less tolerance for other opinion, and only a low willingness to engage for others in political sphere. In preparation of a European Year of the Youth, a UNICEF report of December 2021 highlighted the importance of youth in the Western Balkans to navigate the digital transition, build democratic and inclusive societies, and sustain productive and green economies. However, when asked to react on the statements, politicians care about what ordinary people think, almost 64% of the respondents strongly disagreed. Also, when asked if young people felt they have opportunities to be heard, almost 61% of young people strongly disagreed. My questions are: in which way the EU can play a role in changing this feeling among young people, and how can it encourage the candidate countries to take these problems at heart? Which steps does the EU take, or can it take, to encourage young people to actively participate in political life of their country?
Thank you, Juan Luis. So really a question about the youth participation also in the democratic processes in these candidate countries and how the EU can support that. And the third question will be asked by Théophile from France.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. And this last question is on the role of the churches and civil society. So there's a few current youth studies on the topic of faith and religion that show a stable proportion of devout and religious young people. Individual faith seems to be predominant, but institutional attachment to a religious community is also decreasing at the same time. So here my question: so what role can the church play in European integration in the countries of Southeast Europe? What impulses of reconciliation, peace, and overcoming the traumas of history can the church do in these countries? And what creates what concrete actions can the church take in these Southeast European countries? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Théophile. And I may maybe add one more question that appeared in the chat that is maybe also a bit related to the role of churches, religious communities. There is a question related to cultural heritage. I may also extend it to religious and cultural heritage that is also very rich and present in these also countries of the Southeast Europe, but also is in need of maintenance and preservation for the future. So maybe also here additional question on that. So how can the European Union maybe also promote and protect the cultural and religious heritage? Back to you, Branislav.
Okay, so thank you for all these questions. And what is always interesting with young people or in these discussions that, the questions are pertinent, important, and also open sometimes some new questions or some new reflections. So let's start with the first about Ukraine and integration that is at double speed and so on and so far. So actually, if we really observe the EU already as such has different levels of integration. So we have some countries that are in the Schengen, some others that are in the Eurozone. So we see this differentiation only in the EU, so it is not like one fit for all. And then the French proposal about European political community, I think it goes in a good direction, in the sense that we should not create some new unfulfilled expectations in the very quickly and speedy integration of countries like Ukraine or Georgia or Moldova, because it could have a very negative, absolutely different feedback loop, in the sense that it can create new frustration. And if in 10, 20, 30 years nothing would happen, I think it would probably have just fueled some new nationalistic parties tendencies. And I don't know what could happen then, because I think EU should create expectations that we can fulfill in reasonable time frame. And this is also happening now in the Western Balkans, that sometimes we promise too much and we fulfill too little in reality. So we should not repeat this in Ukrainian case. Of course, the country is in a specific situation, but already signed association agreement. Also Moldova signed association agreement. And these new types of association agreements signed in 2013 and 14 have already so many aspects that resemble to entry to the EU, because at the end, countries like Ukraine, Moldova, they can have free trade agreements. So it's almost like being in the EU without being in the EU. So I think that we should be clever and use the tools that are already there, and not to imagine something new which cannot be really fulfilled. Okay, then the question about political participation. In some countries, I don't want to mention which countries, but probably my impression is in the south, like Italy, Spain. It's very sometimes difficult for young people to have full-fledged political participation at national level, because very often it's like a step-by-step process that you start as a local councillor, that may be a regional councillor, and then somehow you go a little bit to national politics. But we have also exceptions, like in Austria, where a very young chancellor was at the top level of politics. In Central Europe, also we have relatively young politics in Baltic countries. So I think if you want to be in politics, just do it. As is this Nike slogan, just do it. Because, okay, if you see that the doors are closed in some parties, okay, you can create your own political party or movement. It's also possible. Or if you feel attached to your local community, you can be always candidate for a mayor, and then you can prove that you can change something on the ground. And speaking about mayors, when I work for Committee of the Regions, it is kind of European Assembly of Mayors and Presidents of Regions. So it covers these local, regional aspects. We have done a big research across all European countries. What is the trust to political representatives in the level of government, national parliament, European Parliament, and then local and regional politicians. And we have seen that mayors are the most trusted politicians in all European countries. It was around 67%. If national government is only like 20, 25. So what I can guarantee you, if you one day be a mayor, you will have very satisfying job, because it is very concrete political engagement, not so abstract as in Brussels. Okay, and then role of churches and cultural heritage. Of course, churches in some countries, especially if you look on some divisions across, let's say, some national aspects of Orthodox churches, could be a sign of division. But in principle, as we believe in Jesus Christ, who is the figure of unity, and also he said, I want that you are the sign of unity. It should be a platform of unity and dialogue and kind of progression in our human conditions to something that is beyond. And that we today are this meeting is a sign that it is working very well. We should not invent something absolutely new. We have COMECE, we have this platform, we have national bishop conferences, we have national Caritas network. So we have some intellectual think tanks, we have political foundations like Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung. So I think that people that really want to have dialogue or engagement, they can just write an email or call or do a traineeship in Brussels in COMECE, or why not at the European Parliament. And yeah, churches can play this role and already are playing, and I am very thankful for this. And of course, it helps to safeguard our culture, immaterial heritage, because it's something that is intellectual, dogmatic, symbolic. And European Union with EU funds also try to help material structures like some churches, monasteries, libraries. I remember that when I worked with a special envoy for religious freedom, we have been fighting that European Union gives some subsidies for reconstruction in countries like Iraq, and at the end it was done together with UNESCO. UNESCO is also giving some support to libraries in monasteries like in Sinai, St. Catherine Monastery, and I hope that we will do something more in the region of the Western Balkans. If not, you have to knock on the door of the commissioner, and I think that he will help you and support this project. So congratulations, and let's have energy. We are young, we are not retired yet. So let's work together and let's have energy and let's speak together and help this world advance. This is my wish for everybody.
Thank you, Branislav. That really sounds like a very nice conclusion. Also really giving us a mission to continue to follow up each of us in the different contexts, in the different institutions that we are engaged in. So thank you very much again also for your time and willingness to exchange, to engage in this discussion with the young people, and also again a big thanks to all the young people from all the corners of Europe to be part, for being part of this conversation. So before concluding this event, I would still like also again to express our gratitude to the European Office of the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung for the cooperation in preparation of this event, but also giving a special thanks to the colleagues at the COMECE Secretariat, especially Alex, Alexander, and also Emilio, without whom not only this session, but the entire project of the Youth Convention would not have been possible. And I would now at this point still like to give the floor to Alex for some final announcements. Thank you again. Alex, you have the floor.
Thanks, Marek. Thanks a lot also for moderating this event. Yes, this conference is really the end of a long process. And as COMECE, we have organized several dialogues with young people. Some of you have already been there last year in June when we have organized 3 sessions and working groups where we prepared recommendations on the future of the EU, on the future of young people. And 2 weeks ago, we met again and we have took stock of the recommendations we asked last year. And we analyzed the results of the conference on the future of Europe. And based on this analysis, we had a good exchange with EU officials who were able to answer to some questions. And today had this final stage of the Catholic Youth Convention on the Future of Europe, with another dimension which is linked with the region of Southeast Europe, a very important topic when we speak of the future of Europe, and speaking of all the countries who are aspiring to becoming future members of the European Union. So we hope that you have enjoyed all these meetings, all these chances to speak about the EU youth policies and to discuss your future. Now we would like to propose a follow-up for those of you who are interested to know more about what the EU is doing for young people. And I'm just going to share very shortly this slide, which we shared also in the last event 2 weeks ago. So we are going to create the COMECE YouthNet this autumn. And this is a consultative body with young people. There will be one young person per country that will be delegated by its bishops' conference. And the idea is to bring the voice of Catholic young people from all over Europe and to discuss together EU youth policies, for instance, through a short paper that we can work on together or other initiatives. So we will meet about twice per year in autumn and in spring, and in between we will touch base to continue the work together for the common good. So we are looking for one Catholic young person in each country, and this person should be designated in principle by its bishops' conference, your national bishops' conference. So if you are interested to be this one young person that is delegated by your bishops' conference, I really invite you to send a word of interest to your national bishops conference. You can contact the general secretary, and in some countries you also have there is also a youth service department in the national bishops conference, so you can as well contact this person if there is a contact like this. If you have any other question, you can also, because I think we are running a bit over time, but please don't hesitate to send us an email on the email address that we contacted you for this event. So thanks a lot again, everyone, and back to Marek.
Thank you. So really, I think what is missing is just really to say again a big word of thanks to our speakers and to all the participants, and really look forward to continuing this dialogue with you on future occasions. Thank you very much, and all the best also for your exams, if still having some exams in these days. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.